John Daniel Davidson. After 250 years, our American republic is coming apart. The crisis we face today is existential. Too many Americans, both native-born and naturalized, have been taught to despise their country. You know, John Daniel, I actually agree with Eric Moyer in the piece that we have been reading from all week long on his Substack. Title of the piece is America's Original Sin, the 1787 Coup, Cult of Consent, and Inversion of Logos. Why contempt for law is American tradition. President Donald John Trump is only reveals it. And we've been talking about Eric's essay, and I've been bringing parts into it all week. I think that one of the things that Moyer's correct about, and I think Frank Wright is correct about this when he does the same thing and talks about England or Great Britain, and I think that Mike Church is correct. I think that I am correct when I talk about it from the same point of view, and that is it. And I'd love to hear or to read John Daniel Davidson confront it from the same point of view, and maybe he will. It's not the polis, P-O-L-I-S, from the Greek. It's not the polis that is failing. I mean, it is, but I think that's just baked into the system of democracy. A republic is a step above. We don't have a republic anymore, but it's not the polis so much that is failing as it is the people that are failing. And the people are failing because the one institution that is supposed to be the bulwark, the bedrock, the foundation of their civilization, for the most part, and this is not this does not cover everyone, and it's not a blanket statement. I'm not talking about you, and I'm not insulting you and your family. That one entity is no longer carrying out its mission, which is the salvation of souls. Now, in some instances, it does, and where it happens, you love to see it, and it's good, it's true, and it's beautiful. But more times than not, we wind up lamenting that it's not doing it, and that, of course, is the Catholic Church. You can complain all you want. You can call me names. You can say, "Oh, here he goes again." You can all of that. You can just go ahead and do it. You know, I saw some guy on Twitter today say, "I'm tired of seeing Catholic. I'm a Catholic, and I want to see Jesus, Jesus, Jesus." When you say Catholicism, you are saying Jesus, 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 because you are saying the actual Logos. You are saying what the Logos commanded. And the church he left to teach it and to defend it and to institute it and to implement it. It is Christ. It is. We are in the mystical body. So I'm saying the church militant. And in the ages of faith, they had it. Now, and again, you want to go back to the 13th century? No, I just want to bring 13th century faith. And there was a love for it. It wasn't forced. This is what people misunderstand. This is not Islam. It is not enforced by the sword. It is not enforced by the threat of death. It is obedience to the unenforceable. It is enforced by the individual and by love. It is God's love for you. It is your love for God. That is the enforcement mechanism. And God is a benevolent Father who you do not, like your own earthly father, want to disappoint. And when the church teaches what disappoints God, and you go like, "Oh, okay, I'm not supposed to do that." Yeah, don't do that. That's called a sin. Don't do that. When the church teaches it, promotes it, and defends it, then a civilization that internalizes that and tries to practice it is a better civilization. I'm sorry. If this offends you, it just is. That's just the way it is. And look, we have reality says we have examples of it.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Hey folks, Mike Church here with your Golden Truth Ticket secret password of the day. Good luck and God bless. So Moyer concludes his essay. I wanted to share the conclusion because I didn't get to the conclusion Tuesday, Wednesday, or yesterday. So let's do the conclusion. To say your political identity is built on a fraud produces the same psychic effect as saying your origin story is false. Even when the evidence is overwhelming, the cost of acceptance is existential rather than intellectual. The psyche instinctively chooses manageable falsehoods over unbearable truth. Most people cannot follow this path, not because it is false, but because it requires identity death before consolation. Participation persists, not because it persuades, but because it anesthetizes. Restoration fantasies recur, not because they succeed, but because they defer grief. That's all the MAGA thing did, it just deferred the inevitable. That's a salient, brilliant point. The path outlined here demands something harsher. Renunciation of political agency as illusion. Refusal without replacement. Acceptance of judgment without timetable. And fidelity without visible efficacy. That is the narrow gate. Christ never promised it would be crowded. He promised it would be real. I'm just going to pause for a second here to reflect on that. When Christ said, try to pass through the narrow gate, the path will be followed by many, but few would pass through the narrow gate. Try to enter through the narrow gate. Most people, especially most Americans, most Christians in the world today, vast majorities of them, think that he was only referring to your spiritual life, what it is that you do on Sunday. Maybe some of what you do in the evening or in the morning if you're a praying person. But it's limited to when you are doing things that are religious in nature or by definition. I don't view that at all. And I think this is one of the signal points that I have tried to make this week and will continue trying to make. That passing through the narrow gate, you pass through the narrow gate in your family, in your marriage, in your duties as parent. You pass through the narrow gate as a neighbor. You pass through the narrow gate as a brother, as a sister, Brista, as a niece, as a nephew, as an uncle, as an auntie, as a grandpa, as a grandma, as a grandson, as a granddaughter. You pass through the narrow gate as a carpenter, or as a welder, or as a financial advisor, as a truck driver. You pass through the narrow gate as a retiree. You pass through the narrow gate as a laborer. You pass through the narrow gate as an entrepreneur. You pass through the narrow gate in every conceivable field. You know, I once used to joke back in 2012, 2013, or so, when I came back to the church full time and started grasping that sacred tradition, that one of the first things that I learned was that there aren't two confessionals. There's not the one confessional you go to where Father hears all the things that you did in your personal life, and then there's this confessional over here where Father hears all the confessions of all the sins that you committed in your job. Do you think that that's accidental? If you steal something from someone and it is in the course of you executing your vocation or your job or your career or whatever, is it still not a sin? You see, I think this is what I think that we have lost. Now, we're still good people out there, and we still have some of this. And it certainly can be, it can be returned to and restored, but you'd have to aspire to restore it. And as Moyer is saying here, incrementalism, you're not going to get this incrementally. You're either going to do it or you're not. And I don't think having MAGA hanging around or America First or whatever hanging around, this is aspirational. But it never seems to come to fruition. Maybe we should change the goal.